Apple offers 4 iPads: the iPad, the iPad mini, the iPad Air, and the iPad Pro. But which iPad is right for your needs? Check it out. Thanks for watching 9 to 5 Mac. Be sure to thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and then enable notifications with the bell icon so you won't miss any upcoming videos. How's it going, ladies and gents, boys and girls? Jeff Benjamin with 9 to 5 Mac. So we've established that Apple offers quite a few iPads in its lineup. Starting with this right here. This is the $329 base iPad, the entry-level iPad, 9.7-inch display. If cost is the most important thing, then this is the iPad for you. At $329, you can often find it cheaper than that on sale. Now, the biggest downside is the display. It's a 9.7-inch display. It's not laminated, so you have a noticeable air gap, and that makes for more reflection. So if you're an avid reader, I would stay away from this iPad. If you read a lot of ebooks, if you read a lot of long-form content, this isn't going to be the iPad for you. Now, as far as processor goes, it has that A10 Fusion. It's actually a pretty decent performer, but again, that screen is a definite downside. Now, the iPad mini is the iPad to get if portability is at the top of your list. So if you want something that's portable, you're not going to get a better iPad than this one right here. In fact, you're not going to get a better tablet than this one right here. This is basically an iPad Air 3, which has pro-level specs in some regards, shrunken down into this very, very tiny package. Now, that said, the size is also a downside because, well, as you can see, that 7.9-inch display with those huge bezels looks a little weird. And this device, unlike the iPad Air 3, lacks support for the smart keyboard, probably due to size. But the iPad mini is great for handheld typing, unlike any other iPad. And as you can see, the performance is really good. iPad Air 3 basically shrunken down into this form factor. Speaking of the iPad Air 3, let's go ahead and transition over to that. This is basically a larger iPad mini. So it has all the features of the iPad mini in a much bigger form factor with a 10.5-inch display. So this is obviously going to be much better for typing, for drawing, for writing, for any sort of artistry, for running multiple apps side by side. This is obviously going to be much better at multitasking than that small iPad mini. And this supports the smart keyboard because it has the form factor to accommodate it. You can see the smart connector there, which the iPad mini lacks. Now, one thing both devices have in common, this and the iPad mini, is the laminated display. And you can tell the difference immediately. It's almost like you're able to touch the icons. They're so close to the display, which makes it excellent for reading. And you have that super fast A12 processor. Now let's talk about the device that sits on top of the lineup. It is the iPad Pro. It has all the bells and whistles that you would expect from a device that starts at $800. So $300 more than the iPad Air 3. You have that 11 or 12.9-inch ProMotion display with variable refresh rate. You have Face ID built in, and this is the only iPad thus far that supports the 2nd generation Apple Pencil, which attaches right here to the side of your iPad, charges and pairs seamlessly. And you have smart keyboard folio support built in as well. And folks, that really is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the iPad Pro. This thing stuffs in so many features, it's ridiculous. And to be honest, it's probably going to be overkill for your average iPad user. You have things like quad speaker arrays, you have USB Type-C, and it should come as no surprise that this iPad runs circles around every other iPad in the lineup from a performance perspective and even competes with some Macs. But no matter which iPad you choose, all of them support the Apple Pencil in some way, shape, or form. The iPad Pro is the only iPad thus far that supports the 2nd generation Apple Pencil, which supports a double tap gesture to perform different functions inside apps. Now, every other iPad that Apple sells supports the 1st generation Apple Pencil. That includes the $329 entry-level iPad. It also includes the iPad Air 3, and it also includes the iPad mini. Now, all the iPads support the Logitech Crayon, which is interesting. This is a cheaper stylus built on Apple Pencil technology, but it lacks support for pressure sensitivity, which is important for artists, so keep that in mind. So what can we conclude from all this? Well, I think we can safely conclude that there is an iPad for everyone. There's an iPad for those who are just starting. Maybe you just check email, maybe you just do Facebook, things of that nature. That's the $329 iPad. There's an iPad if you value portability over everything else. That's the iPad mini. There's an iPad that has pro level features, but isn't quite there at the price of the iPad Pro. That's the iPad Air 3. You get things like a laminated display, you get a large 10.5 inch screen, you get True Tone display, you get those features in the iPad mini as well. Basically, the iPad Air 3 is a larger iPad mini with smart keyboard support, so that's really nice. And then at the very top of the line, you have the iPad Pro. That's for serious artists, those who value that Pro Motion display, those who value things like Face ID, I almost said Touch ID, Face ID, those who value USB Type-C. Even though it's sort of hampered right now by iOS, I think with iOS 13, the iPad Pro is really going to start to separate itself from the rest of the product line as far as features are concerned. So really there is something for everyone with the iPad Pro, all the way down to the entry-level iPad and everything in between. So the question is this: which one is your favorite? Which one is the right one for you? I'm interested to hear your reasoning, the reason why you bought this iPad or that iPad. I'm interested to hear why you chose the iPad that you did. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to 9 to 5 Mac on YouTube. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. This is Jeff with the 9 to 5 Mac.